decent-looking place.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So today, Larry and I are on a bit of a road trip.
Is it okay if we have a look at some cars?
He started going on about he hasn't bought a car recently, and he's a little bit bored with the cars he's got.
So she seems to be in half-decent shape, you know, and it's a fun little car to drive around. Oh, this is okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I said, well, let's go do some shopping. I think you should buy this one.
Maybe I will.
I came across Platinum, and it's a great dealership.
Oh, it's nice and comfortable.
You look good in that.
Dave is the one that discovered this place, and I'm very impressed, and I'm very happy we came here. Okay, we'll put this one on the list.
What list?
You're not keeping a list?
I'm not keeping it. It's yours.
Well, somebody has to keep a
your
list.
shopping. We've been working on this 250 GT California Spider for quite some time. One of the biggest problems we've got is parts. When we do find them, and that's difficult, they take months to get here. But recently, I had the good fortune of having a chap that I started out with 35 years ago come back to me. Morning, Dave.
Morning.
Geez, that's looking good.
Yeah, it's coming along.
Dave started out with me as a young apprentice 35 years ago, then struck out on his own for a while. Now he's back, and he's turned into master coach builder. It's looking good. I can't believe the fit. They've been a bugaboo, because pulling the line of this top fender into that continuing fall. You know, one of the skills Dave has as a coach builder is making panels on the English wheel, which is an amazingly complicated skill.
They say it's an English wheel, but I just call it the wheel.
There's a crown on the bottom wheel. This one's dead flat. Yeah. This one's got a tiny crown in it, so he's taking advantage of that crown to start pulling that shape in it.
So basically what I'm doing is putting a little bit of height in the piece. To do that, you have to keep the tracking as close as you can so that it becomes a nice even stretch. When you want to get a lot of height real quick, you can turn up the pressure, not too much, because you'll end up ruining the piece.
And different pieces have different crowns. You got one here that's literally
a high crown.
Yeah, I mean, that'll just bring it up in a real hurry.
That's actually what I used for the front cheeks on the Ferrari, to get that bulbous look.
The skill here is, and Dave has acquired this skill, you can make a lovely compound curve in a piece of metal and put it on the left-hand side of the car. But matching that to the opposite side, that's the skill. But boy, it's getting close.
It is.
Not too long before we start putting paint on her.
Still got a few things to do, but...
Yeah, well, there's a car here now, not just flat sheets of aluminum.
Yeah.
So today, Talon's working on headers for the Ferrari. It's V12, so he's got to make custom pipes up and get the exhaust hooked up.
I started cleaning these pipes this morning, cleaning all the welds up, and now I'm gonna fit them back into the flange off the motor.
Talon got some great experience, and when you're dealing with exhaust tubing and manufacturing headers, and you know, to get these angles right, it takes a little bit of thinking outside the box.
I like doing the cutting and welding and grinding, sparks flying. I call it the bones of the build. And then you let the professionals do the painting and make it shiny and assemble all the wires. Wires sort of scare me. These are people's pride and joy, and I like to believe that if it was my vehicle, someone would put the care into it that I can.
It's not something that you can just say, okay, make this fit. It's about the math, it's about the angles, but at the end of the day, it's making it pretty.
But I want to make sure everything fits where I get her welded up. Just one little tack weld for now. Okay, on to the next tubes. Tubular.
The reason we use headers is the flow. The faster you get air and fuel into the motor, and the faster you get the exhaust out, how you make horsepower. With the stock manifold, you don't get the real flow because it's not individual pipes.
So luckily I labeled these, because they all start to look the same after you have 12 in a row.
With a header, all the flow coming out of all the individual pipes is where you get your best flow, and that's why they're used on sports cars and hot rods.
Okay, we got 6 tack. I'm gonna go along and take it off and weld it 100% from the inside. Okay, we're gonna TIG weld these into the flange. This is electric tungsten inert gas. TIG welder, my favorite kind of welding. Just because it's nice and quiet and it's clean and sort of fun. This is the tungsten. It's a pretty unusual metal. It can get incredibly hot and not melt. It's like some sort of magic. And then you have your own filler rod that you would add into your puddle. It's almost like a laser coming out of that thing. It's so tight. I'll go about an inch at a time. Very hot. If you do the whole thing, you risk warping the flange. I'm pretty happy with that. I got all 6 on this side. So I'm just gonna take my 3-inch and take off any high spots, any buildup that's happened from welding, so that this will sit nice and flush against the cylinder head. We ordered collectors, which is really nice. So I'm gonna fit this on to join 3 pipes. So I'll do 2 sets of 3, because trying to set 6 pipes into one, you know, that's outrageous. So I'm gonna cut these uneven pipe ends so that they're a little bit more flush with each other. It's just such an awkward shape, right? I don't think you could fit it in the bandsaw. I'd probably just make a mess of it. Is that ever awkward? I made these pipes longer than they need to be so that I can sort of tell what direction they're gonna wanna go in. Not even halfway through. Running out of steam. Gonna need a coffee break. That's close enough. That's not too much to grind. Let's get my little triangles welded in here. I have these tiny triangles. They fit in between the pipes to seal it up. Give her a little zap. If you forget this little triangle, the gas will shoot back through there. It'll just be a terrible sound. Pop, 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 pop. Nobody likes a leaky exhaust system. So I'm gonna tidy this up. Don't want any blockages. You want it as smooth as you can to make sure this baby breathes. Headers come from the racing world. The smoother you can make all these tubes, in theory, the more power a motor can make. Beauty.
Sean?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Dave. And this is Larry.
I'm Larry. You've got a lot of beautiful automobiles here.
We
There's no
try.
doubt about that. Yeah, I can see that.
Listen, we got 500 cars. It's the largest in the country. The biggest problem we have is customers don't know what to choose. You want something more fitting for him, I think.
I think that he would look good in this.
Anybody would look good in this. It's the ultimate statement. It doesn't get higher than this. Why don't you pop those doors open? Iconic doors. Let me ask you a question. Do you carry your umbrella with you all the time?
Oh, I'm sorry, Governor. I'm not really doing that.
Well, you see this? You have your own umbrella. Don't lose your umbrella because this is $1,800 from Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, can I borrow your umbrella? The answer is no.
You hear that, Dave?
Yeah.
No.
Do you like looking at the stars?
Oh, yeah, get in, Larry. You'll
Do you
love
like
this.
looking at the
Really?
stars?
Oh, look at that.
It's called the starlight roof. You know what? In a Rolls Royce, you should never close your own door. Now, there's a button over here. Hold that down.
This disappears
Obviously.
like that. They can't nick it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You play around with it, it'll go right down.
So if you grab this
But it
and
goes
twist
really fast and it might suck your hand in there, so I don't want to try that. I don't suggest ever playing around with the spirit of ecstasy, because she's violent.
This one's starting to fit, but I can see a little problem. This one will run into that one.
As much as I like this, if I was going to have a red Corvette,
This is major tempting, this one.
To finish the headers on the Ferrari, I want to make sure that they'll fit in the car. So before we start heading back into the exhaust, I want to have a flange right in between this collector, which is a little unusual. What I'm going to try to achieve there is having these 2 pieces unbolt from each other. And then this would become part of the exhaust system, and this will stay with the motor. Now, the only issue that I foresee running into is actual room for this flange in the car. So I'm gonna make it and then tack it on and see if it fits. I'll transfer my pattern onto there and cut it out. I'm gonna drill the holes first. I wonder how I'll get these ones. Maybe a hole saw? That might actually work to cut the inside. Just using a small drill bit to do the pilot holes. And I like to just touch it. You can see it's nice and centered there. Okay, there's the easy holes. Now I'll set this up and try to cut the big hole with the hole saw. See what happens. I think a hole saw is a pretty neat tool. This would be made out of some sort of high carbon steel, probably heat treated. Get a little bit of lubrication on there. Pretty much use anything, engine oil, transmission fluid. Make the blade last a lot longer. A lot of that is to do with keeping the temperature down. I'm not gonna go all the way through till closer to the end because I wanna keep some metal to center the other two holes. Sort of one step at a time. Making custom parts like this, it's not always a straightforward procedure. I might get lucky and these pieces might actually work. That's sort of cool.
What do you think, Dave? It's a nice car, huh?
Are these cars investments? They're certainly a large investment initially. If you're smart and you buy a limited production car, then yeah, you can buy something like this, enjoy the ownership of it for 5 or 6 or 10 years, sell it and get all your money back, and sometimes make even more. This is sort of like Corvette Corner here. There was a great moment where we saw the evolution of a car. You see a 1960s Corvette. As much as I like this, if I was gonna have a red Corvette, that's the one I would have. And then you see the very latest Corvette, this amazing piece of automotive erotica, just sitting there. Everything else pales in comparison.
This is major tempting, this one.
They promised to do a mid-engine car starting in, what, the 70s?
Yeah.
But in the last 10 years, Corvette's finally becoming what it had always promised to be. This is the culmination of that development. I mean, this is just a beautiful car.
So far, this would be my fave. The mid-engine Corvette, which just freaks me right out. I can't get it out of my brain. Gee whiz. That's cool.
So I'm building this flange right in the center section on the Ferrari header. Weld along there. You need a flange here so you can take the header out of the car later for service. I'm gonna cut this quite a bit oversized. This is a rough shape. It'll be enough for me to tell if this idea is gonna work in the car. If it does work, I'll trace this out exactly the same diameter all the way around, and then I'd grind it to that fine line. This one's starting to fit, because I can see a little problem in the future. This one will run into that one. So I know I'm gonna need at least that much, so I can still cut a lot of material out of there. I could probably squeeze 2 in there. So that's starting to actually look more like a real piece. So the more you work it, refine it down. So if this guy fits and I'm happy with it in the car, luckily I only have to make 7 more of them.
Personally, the car that I find the most fascinating you've got here is the Ferrari hatchback.
Well, it's not really a hatchback. It's supposed to be the winter Ferrari for the businessman.
I like Ferraris, there's no doubt about it. I love Italian design cars, everybody knows that. But there are some Ferraris that really, really appeal to me.
It's one of their only cars that they produce is 4-wheel drive. It's actually meant for the winter.
It's a 4-wheel drive winter beater done by Ferrari, which means basically, I'm not supposed to say this, but it looks a lot like a hatchback.
And don't ever go to Ferrari and tell them it's a hatchback, they'll kill you.
You know, the shape of this is almost like the bread truck from the 60s, and it literally is a Ferrari station wagon. I just think it'd be cool. Have a Ferrari that looks like you're going out to get the groceries. So, Sean, when we were walking into Platinum,
Yeah.
there was a car in your foyer.
That's not a car, that's art.
It is art.
The Ford GT absolutely caught both our eyes. It's
I am
stunning.
jaded, and I've seen so
All of
many
us
of
are.
everything, but a piece of magnificent design sticks with you, and this is one of those. When you look at the front of this car and the shape and the textures and the intakes, everything on this car is functional, and yet they managed to put the function together in such a way that it became aesthetically a dynamite.
You know what? It's a 57 original miles on it.
Wow.
It's actually never seen the road.
This is as delivered.
These tires haven't seen asphalt. It was towed here. When I purchased it, I didn't even drive it from outside inside.
It belongs in a museum almost. If you could do it, you'd put it on the wall and just look at it. If you were a bachelor, you'd put this right in your living room and you'd watch your TV from there. In fact, I don't even know you'd want to even sit in it. It's just so beautiful.
Perfect car for Larry because he would never be a danger to anybody.
No.
Yeah, I would never drive it.
Yeah.
That's right.
So guys, after seeing our 500 cars, what do you like?
I don't know, boy. I tell you, we like that, the Ferrari, and
And I saw you eyeing that Corvette.
yeah, I know, yeah.
I think for you, you want to drive a car, you
Yeah.
want it to be reliable, you want to not lose money on it.
That's very true.
I can see you in this.
Yeah, I can too, actually. It's very nice. I like this. I could see the Corvette sitting in the garage,
Yeah.
yeah. It's really got the style.
He'll drive it
and
for a
that's-
month, be fed up with it, say, hey, Dave, can you sell this for me?
Dave, can you sell it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Sean again.
Guys,
Thank you, my
pleasure.
friend.
So walk you guys out.
Yeah, he's trying to get rid of you.
Well, I think it's you who trying to wants me to stay and you to go.
All in all, it is a modern MGB. It's how they should have kept building them.
Yeah, it's the Miata killer.
After looking at new sports cars with Larry today, I came to the realization that it really doesn't matter what era you're in. There's good sports cars and there's bad sports cars. In most people's minds, when they think British sports car, especially the 50s, 60s, MGs sort of turn up. They are an iconic British sports car, and there is a certain charm to them, there's no doubt about that. But while they are sort of cute and appealing, they were really crummy cars. The MGTA through the TD, those were really a 1930s look. They had flying fenders on them, they had small displacement engines, they had sort of very stiff little frames. They didn't handle well despite their looks. They had understeer, they had oversteer, and you were in danger of rolling over if you cornered too aggressively. Certainly the 1930s look of them didn't appeal to a lot of people who had grown up with this and had moved on. You know, so there was, and still are, a lot of collectors and a lot of enthusiasts who love these, but there's an awful lot more people like MGBs. This is the MGB. This is, in my opinion, the most iconic of all of the MG cars. You know, and there was lots of little MGs. There was the MG Midget, which was sort of a silly little thing from about the same period. But this is the one that was the most successful of all the MGs. I've driven lots of them, and, you know, they were pretty gutless, lackadaisical on corners, like just not what I'm used to because I'm incredibly spoiled. This particular car was a bit of a revelation to me because we did a lot of work on this car, and there was an awful lot of performance improvements done. I'm not absolutely clear on everything we did on this because they keep me pretty loopless around this place. But Greg, you know intimately what has been done to this car, so in detail, what have we actually done?
Well, we got a 4-link rear suspension. We've got coilover shocks and an upper controller low arms.
Why it goes around corners.
Yeah. When the MGB came in, it was just your stock run-of-the-mill MG. The owners wanted to make this like a little track car.
Oh, there we go.
And then she comes up quick.
Oh, yeah, it does.
We put some nice rods on it to hold it up for them. Motor's been completely rebuilt. We have a Mazda Miata transmission, a 5-speed in it. Got rid of the old clunky 4-speed. We have an aluminum intake, aluminum rad, a pair of SU carbs on it, and an aluminum head.
So that is so completely not stock, and yet it's still running a 4-cylinder. I've seen V8s and big 6s squashed into these things, and I mean, it rather ruins them.
And then the body, the paint, every piece of chrome and stainless, full interior, full gauge package, pretty much everything from the pavement up.
You know, sometimes when you do the job on these cars, you don't really get that much benefit for the amount of money you shoved in, but this one, everything seems to work very well.
This thing is set to go on the track if he chooses to, or give him a nice sports car feel without, you know, saggy old suspension.
All in all, it is basically a modern MGB. It's how they should have kept building them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, if they were to build it exactly like this, I mean, you'd have a lot of people wanting them. It's the Miata killer.
It's sort of like a puzzle. Turn it the odd way and it'll fall into place. Have to do it by feel because I can't see.
It's the tough part of the job is actually driving these things on a beautiful day down a back road. It sucks to be me sometimes.
Just working on getting enough clearance under the Ferrari. You see the ground clearance is so shallow on this car, but really this is the only spot I have bringing the exhaust out. So this is the flange. I put it together on the bench, but now I've got to make these fit in here. Keeping in mind I want it as close to the bottom of the car within reason to achieve maximum ground clearance. So I know I want that to come out close to there. I'm just gonna carve it down until the out spout is about a ½ an inch higher. Die grind this out a little bit. Just trying to keep it as shallow this way as I can, but I don't want to restrict the flow at all. There is no official rule book, but typically people who build cars and hot rods, you want a 1/4 inch everywhere you can for things that get hot. If you have a really hot piece of metal, you don't want it melting paint. It is sort of like a puzzle. You turn it the odd way and it'll sort of fall into place. Have to do it by feel because I can't see. They don't make these pieces. A lot of these Ferraris are handmade to begin with, so even two of the same car, they're not gonna have the same parts. That's what I want. I've already made 3 of these. This is the last one. I mean, this one is the most aggressive. It took a while to make this piece. It takes a little bit more work and a little bit of hand finesse action, but it's gonna work. Okay, I like it. I like it.
All right, let's go for a road test. This engine has been completely taken apart. There's not much of the original little MG 4-cylinder left. So we're gonna put it through its paces.
Well, the power's pretty good.
The design of this one is to make it streetable
That clutch feels good. Wow, she ever handled nice.
and still be able to go on the tracks.
It actually feels really sporty. Oh my God, this thing's like a little go-kart.
Great little car to track because you're gonna surprise a lot of people with the tune on the motor and the headers.
Wow, the suspension is just right there. It's tight. There's no slop in the shocks, no bouncing in the rear end. It holds the road beautiful. Love, love, love the way the clutch feels now. They really did their research on these Miata transmissions that they're using in these cars. 5-speed puts a little different dimension, better first gear. Final drive in less than 1-to-1 is nice. It just ticks all the boxes on any real good modification. You know, better braking, better handling, more power. It's a tough part of the job is actually driving these things on a beautiful day down a back road. It sucks to be me sometimes. Woo!